RE timing. What is the ideal max boost for a B8 Stage 2 Plus tune? I have an aggressive pulley ratio, and I'm worried max boost plus max timing equals kaboom.
Is that a kaboom or is it just
Fire.
fire?
Well, I don't know. So if it's fire, is it
Fire
good or
means it's
bad?
supposed to light off your,
I
your
think it's
charge.
supposed to be bad.
We've talked about this a lot. I am not a fan of running, aggressive pulley ratios. They generally just introduce a lot more heat than they do motive force. So we're always going to say run the smallest pulley you can for what you're trying to achieve. Running big pulley or big lower pulleys and little upper pulleys is tough to control. It's tough to keep the temperatures where they're, where things are going to be happy. Um, we're at the limit of what the fuel system can provide. There's a lot of things that you start running into the limits of um, as you go with bigger and bigger pulley ratios, and the downsides start stacking up pretty quick for the heat generated. The efficiency of the superchargers just nosediving. So I don't like going any bigger than the 190 on the lower and then our upper pulley. I know there's guys out there that run a lot higher than that. But it's usually tough to get those setups running, you know, strong all the time and reliably and keep them cool and keep things, optimal. So yeah, that's kind of why we only have the 190 mil, and then the 179 is what we generally recommend for the guys that are up, tracking the cars all the time and really need to keep those air temps
Hmm.
managed correctly. Pull after pull after pull.
Yeah, I mean, you have to keep in mind boost or forcing a certain pressure of air inside a motor is not what creates horsepower and torque.
Yeah, and I actually meant to follow up also that is very dependent on what fuel you're running.
Yeah.
E40 will do a lot better on
Mhm.
a higher pulley ratio than say 91 or 93 or even 100. So if you're running 91, 93, I would always recommend like a 179 mil lower and enjoy it. You're gonna have a
Mhm.
nice, pretty optimized setup for the given fuel. If you're able to go to an E40, 190 mil lowers with our upper pulley
Mhm.
works really well.
Well, once you really start understanding what is the mechanism inside the motor that forces the piston down with enough force to generate peak horsepower and torque, you can quickly see that that combination of factors, that boost is only just one of them.
Yeah.
And the amount of air, which is the boost, the amount of fuel, which is fuel ratio, and then, frankly, the most important thing is when does that wave of pressure begin, and at what point does that wave of pressure act on the piston? And that is very much related to timing, engine timing.
Yeah.
So you could force a 100 psi of pressure into a combustion chamber and a motor that could withstand it. But if that explosion happens at the wrong time, then not only is it going to not make horsepower, it's going to shove the rod and piston back down the engine's throat, like in a really bad way.
Usually it doesn't go down either. It goes
It just goes into
so
pieces. Yeah. But, and we have a whole piece on this. Maybe you want to reference that, or if you can find it, Sean. But, the key is the explosion and the pressure wave has to happen when the piston's heading back down. But it has to start when the piston's on the way up.
yeah, that flame front isn't instant.
No.
It takes time. We're talking milliseconds here.
It is
but
instant.
it's
But in that how that works, within that instant, there's many milliseconds
Right.
and microseconds when things happen. So people get hyper focused on boost because there's a gauge on the dash, and sure, up to a certain point, the more boost you make, the more power you make. But once you run out of timing, then more boost is worse. And so,
Yeah.
if you had unlimited octane fuel and you could light off, you could give as much timing as you wanted to whatever amount of boost that you could run, then sure. But that's not real life.
Yep. Yep. No, we live in a world where compromises are what control us. So
Yeah.
yeah, we've got to pick our battles, and we will generally always try and steer you to a more what we would consider a reasonable pulley ratio, and you will generally enjoy things uh,
Yeah.
a lot longer for with a lot more consistent power output.
Mhm. So, it's just like anything else. I mean, it's just like your body. Your body's powered by, glucose, and if you don't have enough, you die. If you have just the right amount, you have optimal energy and health. And then if you hit too much, you get diabetes, and then literally like you start dying. Parts of your body die. If you get too much glucose in your cells, then they stop working. So this is very similar to Boost. You need the right amount, but more doesn't always equal better. People just, I think there's still a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, if there were no compromises, why wouldn't we have 200 and whatever millimeter pulleys all the time?
Yeah.
Running on everything, and we'd be recommending those. But there's
Well, then there's this whole other factor of efficiency for the pressure creating device. So
right, yeah,
in this
that's
case,
kind of what I'm-
it's a
what I'm down
supercharger,
to.
and it can it produce more boost? Yes, but the more at some point it just starts producing heat.
Yep.
And so now you have to do something with all that heat. There's a offset at a certain point. So there's an optimal efficiency for the supercharger where it creates the most boost with the least amount of heat. That's where you kind of want to be. But as soon as you start going away from that, as soon as you go above that, then now you're dealing with all this heat, and heat is working against your ability to make more power. So
Yeah, somebody just chimed in. We need a turbo kit. We've talked about this too. Putting a turbo kit on the 3-liter is, to do it in an engineered
to make it faster.
product. Yeah, in an engineered product that you could buy and install with all the documentation that's required, with all the software support, with all of the, all of the details you would expect from a complete kit is probably going to cost more than the cars do at this point.
Yeah.